I definitely don't do a 40-hour working week, but if I felt that I wanted to, and in my menstrual cycle, I had the capacity and the energy and the desire, I could, but that's not my norm because I didn't break out of the Monday to Friday 9 to 5 to do those hours. But also, I can be sitting on the couch and have an idea and a piece of inspiration drops in. So I will grab that and put that into something so that I can circle back to that when it is a more suitable time. So I haven't actually ever sat down and tallied my hours, but the service days are 9, and the latest I would finish with a client would be 5 p.m. So that there's a cap on how many actual service hours are in that because of that half-hour buffer minimum between each client, but they're never full anyway. There's always extra spaces because that's what my intention is, but that's just naturally how the clients fall with their schedules as well. So yeah.
Hello and welcome to Create Your Life. My name is Simone Leah and I am your host, and I am so excited to be here with you guys today. Today I had the absolute pleasure of interviewing Chenae Carey, who is an intuitive business coach, around the topic of what a day in the life of a six-figure entrepreneur actually looks like. Now, this was a great topic to dive into because I know people that they have their milestones. They want to get to the 10K months or the six-figure year or the seven-figure year, and so having that conversation with Chenae and seeing what her processes are, what her day looks like, was phenomenal. And what I really enjoyed about this conversation was that Chenae doesn't work weekends. She doesn't work nights. She's only on 2 social media platforms. She has 3 client days and 2 business days. And the way she structures herself, she still gets the results she wants, but she's also living the life she wants and creating that financial, I want to say freedom. She's got that financial freedom that she wants to have in her life. And I think that's so amazing. And so, as mentioned, we do touch on what her days look like, how much of her time is client time, how much of her time she spends posting on social media or creating content, or, we touch on all the little daily habits that she has. And so it's a really beautiful conversation. And I really hope you guys enjoy it because I think that there's so much to be learned from people who are at those next levels that you want to get to. So I hope you guys really enjoy this one. Chenae is a beautiful, bright burst of energy, and it's a really fun interview and just lots of little interesting things that we talk about. So many little interesting things. So yeah, grab a pen and paper, and I hope you enjoy this one. Hello and welcome to Create Your Life. My name is Simone Leah and I am your host, and I am so excited to have Chenae Carey with me today, who is an intuitive business coach, and we are going to be talking about the amazing topic of a day in the life of a six-figure entrepreneur. Hello Chenae, welcome to the show.
Hi, Simone. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you here because I think one of the big questions around business creation is what does actually a day in the life of someone at different levels look like? And I think that first main level is the six-figure level. So I'm super excited to jump into this topic, but I would love to know first, what does creating a life you love look like to you?
Oh, I love this topic because something I'm really passionate about is a thing that I call entrepreneurial freedom. And it's basically exactly what you've described. It's if you didn't have the constraints of a like Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, what would that look like with no limitations? So that's kind of what it means to me. Like, how do I create this and what do I want it to look and feel and sound like? Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I totally love that, which is going to go so perfectly with our topic today of,
Yeah.
yeah, what does a day in your life look like? I'm dying to know.
Yeah. Yeah. So would you like me to literally take you through from when I wake and what that looks like and all the way through?
I mean, if we can, I'd like, because I would love to know, like, what sort of time you have for your, like, do you exercise? Do you like have family commitments? Do you have hobbies? You know, just so
Yeah.
that people can get that idea of like, also then we'll break down your work day a little more into
Yeah.
like client time compared to marketing time compared to business time. So yeah, all the
Yeah.
things. Let's do
Yeah.
this if you're open to.
Of course, absolutely. So at the time of recording this, it's 4 p.m. in my day at the moment. So I've had you are the last formal commitment for face-to-face things for me today to record this with you. So one of the first things I do of a morning that is sort of me getting up and out and moving around a little bit is quite literally just taking my dog outside. Now, he doesn't need to be taken outside because he has a little dog door into a little courtyard. But there is a little grassy area that he can kind of roam freely and that it's a slightly more public space. So I take him out there and I sit down I live in a beautiful place called Queensland, which is the Sunshine State. And the sun is almost always shining at that hour of the morning. And so I do a little Instagram story, and it's very meta because what I do in my Instagram stories is kind of what I'm telling you about, because I tell everybody about what my day is going to be like. And it not only sets me up for, what does my day look like? How is it unfolding and what's going to happen? But I get to share the behind the scenes because people really like that. And also I know that my ideal clients are, aiming for that six-figure income. That's what they want. It's 5-figure months or six-figure annual revenue, and that's what people want. So to show them what that looks like, and this is such a perfect topic because I literally tell people a little bit of a behind the scenes about that of a morning on Instagram stories. So that's the first thing that I do. Do you have any questions? Do you want to know anything else before I dive into the next?
No, I love that. I love that. That's yeah, you start your day like outside in fresh air, but also sharing with your audience. I love all of that.
Yeah, it's very delicious. It's a fairly new thing. I've only been doing it for a short little while, but I got the idea from, goodness, let me see if I can remember. I think someone from a networking group that I'm part of, I think it might have even been Tina Tower. It might not be, but I'm pretty sure it was from someone by the name of Tina Tower that I got it from. But I heard that I was listening to a podcast and I heard her sharing this with the interviewer, and I thought, that's what I need. Like I have gone from being really supporting Facebook Lives and doing lots of them a few years ago now, to not being able to maintain that consistently. And I think, the world that has unfolded in recent years has a lot to do with that. But I was missing that video element with my audience, with my fans, with my followers. And I'll come back to the word fans in a minute because that's really important for something that is how I live my life. But I was listening to it and she said, everyone thinks I'm so consistent and I do so much on social media, but actually all I do is I start my day with a story for my audience. And it landed and I went, that it just felt so easy. The ideas started pouring in, the inspiration was like right there, ripe and ready. And I was like, that's it. That's my next thing. It's going to bridge that gap, offer that video content without me, having to plan and schedule lives and all of that. It allows me to be spontaneous, but it also allows me to give people a peek behind the curtain, which they really, really like. So yeah, it's delicious. And I'll tell you the fans thing because I think that's important. So there's a concept that you and your audience may or may not have heard of. It's the sacred money archetypes. And the sacred money archetypes have I've done some profiling with them. And in terms of the archetypes that are true and resonant for me is the romantic, like it'll all work out, it'll all be fine. That really beautiful, somewhat carefree to our detriment kind of approach. But then there's also a celebrity archetype. And there aren't a lot of people who are in that archetype. We're a little bit more less common, for lack of a better word. And I have that in spades. So when I use the word fans, it's not that they're actually like fans because I'm Beyonce or Lady Gaga. It's just that energy exchange has that kind of quality to it. It's a really beautiful thing, and it's definitely something that I had to learn to embrace and to be okay with and to be comfortable with, because it was something I had associated something negative to. But anyway, long story short, I've done some work with that, and I love that it's now a source of inspiration for my audience. So I show up real, very rarely a lick of makeup on my face, maybe some fake lashes, because who doesn't love some lashes? But I show up and I let people see me fresh faced in the morning, and they really, really love that.
Oh my goodness, I love literally all of this. All of it. Oh my gosh. Firstly, the fact that you are out there without makeup on is like, yay, go you. I really, really love that. Even on the
Yeah.
bad days of skin, like, so it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
But I love the spin on the word fans. And I think that it's actually kind of a little bit of doing the quantum leaping type stuff that people talk about, where if you use the word fans, you're really putting yourself in a position of like, yeah, I share with people, I inspire people, and people are following me to learn and grow and expand. And by using that word fan, it's putting you into that that place where your mind goes of who has fans, people who are big and doing what they love, so it actually kind of bridges that quantum leap gap as well by using that one word. So I really literally love that, and I'm going to start using it because I think that's an amazing way to look at it and a great spin to have on it.
Yeah, totally. And I'd love to hear, if you ever do the sacred money archetype profile, what your archetypes are, because it's a really fun way to look at how we approach money in our business as well. So yeah, I think that it's beautiful synchronicity, because anyone who's soul led, which is definitely the people who listen to this, love archetypes, love patterns of energy. It would be so perfectly aligned for lots of people. I'm not an affiliate, I just love it. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, I'm totally going to be doing it after we get off the interview because I'm like, oh, I'm so curious now. I'm so curious.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll keep you posted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens then in your day? Because you've done your social
So
media then, like you've done your
yeah.
live.
Yeah, I've shown up and connected with my audience. So I then kind of have a little bit of space, and my first call of the day is usually around 9 a.m. ish. I used to love the freedom and the flexibility way back when I started my business, of starting as late as I wanted, like luxuriously late. But as time has gone on, and I'm 8 years into my business now, I don't need that really luxurious, like 9 a.m. is still pretty generous, I think. But generally speaking, my client calls kick off at 9 a.m., but I have 3 client-facing days a week. So Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays currently. And then I've got Mondays and Fridays as like bookends of my week. And so Mondays is I co-work with a friend virtually, and sometimes we catch up and do it at a cafe together, but 90% of the time it is virtually. And it's that start to the week that sets me up for so much momentum and success, because I'm achieving goals and creating that momentum by getting stuff done right from the get-go. And that's been the case for me even before we were co-working on those Mondays, that's always been a non-client facing day for me, and it serves me so incredibly well. But to caveat all of that, like I also then have a full day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So some people really love to, just do a half day, and they could comfortably work as many, days as they want. But for me personally, I would rather a longer day, stack them in the middle, and then have those beautiful bookends to work on my business, to get stuff done, to do the admin, to plan, to get bits and pieces happening. And I've had that model for quite a number of years now, and it works really well for me. So that's kind of a snapshot of the week. And then so I have my calls with clients are generally 60-minute Zoom calls. I do everything virtually so I can serve anybody anywhere. And then I also do a little bit of behind the scenes work. So my clients, that are in the bigger packages with me have a little bit of extra frills, if you will. The no frills packages are still really beautiful, but the extra frills have things like I write content for them, or I'll, produce a newsletter and design bits and pieces in Canva for them and kind of add a little bit of extra to it so that it takes it off of their plate. So my work day is generally a combination of client facing like this. But obviously you're not in a client capacity right now, but very similar to this. And then bits and pieces where I'm actually working for people behind the scenes as well. So it's kind of a mixture of the both. And then what I think is really important to mention is that I don't have a family in terms of children. I have a husband and a dog, but we don't have offspring, which is very handy to know when hearing about my lifestyle, because as we get into the more nitty gritty of my hobbies, sports, exercise, all of that sort of stuff, I couldn't possibly fit it all in, I don't think, if I had kids. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Yeah, the way you have to structure yourself when you have kids, I think is a little bit different because you just kind of have to roll with the tiny humans, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And when you don't have kids, you kind of just have to roll with whoever else is, your husband or your partner, but it's mostly just on however you want to design your day. So I
Yeah.
love all of this and I'm dying to jump into more of the nitty gritty. I
Yeah.
would love to know, and it sounds like, because what I really love is it sounds like Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are your serving days,
Yes.
which I really, really love because it's kind of like your week is broken down into serving and then also business tasks. And I have two questions, but I don't want to like overwhelm. But um, a lot of people are talking about six-figure incomes and they're like, I made my six-figure income on 25 hours a week. What kind of time frame are you looking at with your work? Is it full days or like 40-hour weeks, or are we looking at more of the maybe 6-hour days?
Good question. So every hour that I have a client session, there's always a half-hour window after that if I have something back to back. I never am literally back to back, because buffer and white space are two terms that are really important to me. So I definitely don't do a 40-hour working week, but if I felt that I wanted to, and in my menstrual cycle I had the capacity and the energy and the desire, I could. But that's not my norm, because I didn't break out of the Monday to Friday 9 to 5 to do those hours. But also, I can be sitting on the couch and have an idea and a piece of inspiration drops in. So I will grab that and put that into something so that I can circle back to that when it is a more suitable time. So I haven't actually ever sat down and tallied my hours, but the service days are 9, and the latest I would finish with a client would be 5 p.m. So that there's a cap on how many actual service hours are in that, because of that half-hour buffer minimum between each client, but they're never full anyway. There's always extra spaces because that's what my intention is, but that's just naturally how the clients fall with their schedules as well. So yeah.
No, I love that. I love that. And yeah, I love that. I'm dying to know also as well, how strict on you are evenings and weekends?
100%.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
really interesting as well. So there's no like Saturday morning, we'll just throw that in there. And yeah,
Never.
that's really
No.
beautiful. Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely love that because it really is, it definitely sounds like you've designed something around your life. You've got your weekends and evenings free, you've got your
Yeah.
Mondays and Fridays, and then you've got your beautiful client days, which I just love.
Yeah.
So how does like the Mondays and Fridays work? Because how much of that is you working on your business and how much of that is you kind of working in your business?
So I'm very rarely doing client work on a Monday unless something urgent has cropped up, but it's a very rare occurrence. So I'm always working on my business. I'm very rarely in my business on a Monday. So if I'm working on a course, I'm recording modules, or I'm creating copy for social media or those sorts of things. I'm never doing client work. So I'm doing my own stuff admin, marketing, all of that sort of stuff. I also tend to tackle the projects that I am more likely to resist. So, I had to get a really boring legal document sort of filled in. I had a template to fill in. That was what I did on Monday this week, because sitting down to do it by myself, I just, it doesn't light me up, but it had to be done. So I use my co-working time and I leverage that. I try to be really strategic with that to do the things that perhaps just don't naturally, effortlessly happen when I'm not being held accountable in any way.
Oh, I love that. And can you also talk us through how that works? Because, like, are you guys just sitting on
Yeah.
Zoom like this and then working at the same time? And does that mean you have a second
Yeah.
screen or?
Yes. So to answer your question, yes, we're on Zoom. However, we do the Pomodoro technique. So for anybody who's not familiar with that, Pomodoro is actually the Italian word for tomato. And there's a tomato timer. If you Google tomato timer, it's a whole thing. But basically, this concept is that you do 25 minutes of focused work and then you take a 5-minute break. So you can very easily break down an hour into two POMs. We call them POMs for short, and then 2 5-minute breaks. And so in the 5-minute break, you essentially get up, move around, have a stretch, or just debrief what you did. Because if there's momentum, it's like, I did this, and then we go back into another 25. So that's how we structure our co-working sessions. So sometimes we're on Zoom like this, but sometimes it's just that we go and do our own things. And then we jump on Zoom or Messenger, quick little video call, pop the phone on my laptop and have a little chat for the 5 minutes, debrief, grab a cuppa, whatever. And then we set the timer and we go again. But we're not really rigid with the 25 and 5, because flexibility is important to all of us who are soul-led entrepreneurs, right? So the concept, the framework remains the same, but if we've got a slightly meatier thing, we might do 30 minutes or 40 minutes. And maybe we need to actually make something to eat. So we extend the break a little bit longer and then we agree to come back at, 11:30 or whatever it might be.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I think because a lot of people are working from home as well. So they're like, I'm getting no interaction. I have no people.
Mm-hmm.
So I really, really love that because that is one of the things that you miss. And do you find that you guys will go off on talking tangents and not get back to work, or are you quite good at getting back into it?
A little bit of both. Like, we're both pretty disciplined because we're there for a reason. But what we do really well is transparency. So transparent communication. Like, I'm feeling really flat because it's day 1 of my cycle. So I'm here to get stuff done, but my expectations are low. Or I really need to nut this out. And I've got, my friend has a little one at school. So school pickup, I've got to leave at 2:30. So I really need to get this done. And so we just really open and honest with each other and have that really transparent communication. So we can have a little chat if we need to, if we're both in agreement with that, but we're also both really good at reading the room. So, picking up on the unspoken, subtle, more subtle cues, we both do a really good job of that. Yeah.
No, I love that. I love that. And you've mentioned it a second time now, and I'm glad you did because it makes me, I wanted to go back to it. I like know my menstrual cycle very well. I have a lot of self-awareness and I know which parts of my menstrual cycle are going to be the parts where I'm like, I need to do something that's really analytical. And I need, then there's going to be like a full week of let's just go creative land. And how does your menstrual cycle weigh into your week as well in your structure and in your times and...
Yeah, in everything. To answer your question about a second screen, yes, I do, by the way. Back to the menstrual cycle. My business mentor and I, every Friday, she sends me a WhatsApp check-in, and we've co-created the questions that she asks me. So it's things like my newsletter open rate for the previous week, projects that I'm working on, da 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 da. And one of the questions is, what phase of your cycle are you in next week? So that each week I'm preparing and just bringing it into I know where I'm at, but bringing it into my awareness through a business lens so that I am setting my expectations, my goals, my everything up for success rather than, trying to churn out a whole heap of work when I'm, premenstrual or whatever that might be. So informs quite a lot of what I do. But I don't tend to, my flow is not, for people who have endometriosis and it's really intense and they, really need time away. I'm really blessed in that my cycle, it ebbs and flows as everybody's would, but it doesn't make it really difficult for me to be in service. So I'm really blessed in that regard, that I can still serve my clients even, right at the end or right at the start of a cycle. So it does come into play quite a lot. And if I'm planning anything in terms of like webinars or workshops, lead magnets that are live, I don't do them when I'm premenstrual or the first few days of my bleed, because it's not optimal. So I will optimize my own, performance, if you will, by being aware of that and scheduling that accordingly.
Yes, I love that. I'm exactly the same, because yeah, same for the exact same reasons. But I think it doesn't
Yeah.
really get mentioned that often. And obviously, women, we do have these 28-day cycles or whatever your healthy cycle is. And I do
Yeah.
obviously, I'm the same as you. I don't have any of the endometriosis stuff, so I can still work. But I do notice there are times where I'm more emotional or more analytical, or
Yeah.
so yeah, I love that you actually kind of prep your week around knowing where you're going to be at. You
Yeah.
know, I think that's a really beautiful practice of even just, yeah, really nurturing yourself and
Mm-hmm.
and also keeping the business moving.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, love that. Thank you for sharing that. And how, like, this is going to sound like a weird question. How do you keep track of that, just for the audience that doesn't do that? I do that, but for the audience, how would they
Yeah.
keep track of something like that? Would you have a journal or?
There's lots of tools out there that have been made to make that really easy for us. So I currently use an app, but prior to that, I actually bought a divine feminine mapping tool, which was actually a book, a physical book that had all sorts of aspects of the feminine experience. And that's what I did initially. And then I upgraded a couple of years ago to an app, which is the Flow, FLO app. And I took all that, because I'd been tracking, I took all my data of when my cycles were, and I actually could backdate and input them all in. And so there's all of this historical data and also the data moving forward. And what the app does is, it not only does it kind of roughly estimate based on my cycle when I'm due to start my period, but it also maps my ovulation, because if you're not aware of it, ovulation for many women is a really great time to be presenting, to be speaking. Your energy is usually quite high and vibrant, and it's the time to network. Networking is not so great when you're at the first day of your bleed. Like, that's not optimal, not impossible, but yeah, I put all that data into there. So I track at the very minimum my cycle itself, so that it keeps getting that information. But there is so much that you can track in there. So I track my volleyball. I play beach volleyball on a Monday night. I track my yoga classes in there. You can do all sorts of things about sex drive and feelings. So, premenstrual anxiety or frustration or overwhelm and all of that as well. So depending on how enthusiastic you are about it, you can add as much detail in there as you like.
I literally love this. I feel like this needs to be a whole conversation, because I don't feel like women are talking about designing their business around their literal physical. Like, when you have your period and your cycle, it is such a big part of your physical, your emotional, your energetic, your
Mm-hmm.
intellectual comes into play a bit, what you're thinking, and it really does affect everything. And it makes me go, we need to have a whole conversation just about like this alone, running a business as a female, taking cycles into account.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. And thank you for sharing that. And guys, I really would recommend, if you guys don't know where your cycle is at, to start paying attention to it, because as we are saying here, it really does make a difference to what your days and weeks are going to look like. And you can optimize, as you said, to get those best moments for yourself, to be able to do whatever it is that you're wanting to do on that day, or in that time. So I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. So when you are doing your business days on the Mondays and the Fridays, How much time do you think, would you say you spend literally like creating new products compared to actually doing marketing materials, compared to actually like, is there an element of creating a freebie or a masterclass every month? Or have you got an online course that you also work on? Or like, what are the other little aspects that come up during the Mondays and Fridays?
Good question. So I'm a huge advocate for doing as little as you possibly can in terms of the things that you sell until you get momentum and reach that sort of the revenue that is the desired revenue for whatever that is, and then expanding rather than having a million different things all at once and spreading our energy and focus thin. That works for some people, but I tend to advocate for it because most of my clients are creative, also soul-led businesses. And if they pour all of themselves into one thing, they cannot help but be magnetic. So with that in mind, I have just come off the back of a really successful couple of years where my income has doubled and I'm, sitting really comfortably financially. And that has literally been by selling a 3-month package to people or a 6-month package to people. And that's literally all that I have offered. So now I'm moving into a transition phase where I'm creating some more leveraged income products and things like that. So to answer your question, yes, I'm working on courses that are leveraged. So I've got some companion courses that go with the book that I published last year. I've got a copy here. I'll show you because it's a pretty interesting topic. It's called "Is Your Business a Prison?"
Amazing.
And so there's 6 prisons in there, and there's a companion course for each of those being built. I'm also working on some resources that my clients basically have begged me for. So they're looking for things like a business plan that's not dry and boring that you have to submit to the bank to get a loan when you start a business, and things that are, checklists for, the foundations and the essentials. So I'm doing quite a lot of creation at the moment because of that. And that is one of my big goals at the moment, is to create a certain amount of income from leveraged income sources to then boost me up. So if I wanted to step away from the one-on-one work, which I don't want to, but if I wanted to, I have the freedom, because freedom is so important to do so. So there's definitely a lot of creation time. I definitely do a free lead magnet live every month, which you had just mentioned a moment ago. So I'm always creating them, but there's not a lot of time and energy going into the creative process because it's strategic. So whatever it is that I'm putting out into the world next is the very topic of the free webinar or workshop or whatever it is that I'm running for that month coming. So it's really smooth and really seamless. So this is what I'm selling. This is the logical step before it. So there is a little bit of creation, but I run my webinars on a Friday, even though it's my non-client facing day. I sort of don't count it as clients because it's lead magnet stuff, list growth. So I do run them on a Friday. So I'm actually, putting the final touches on the Friday morning, making sure it's all as it should be, and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, that definitely comes into play on a Friday for me. And I would say that the webinars and the workshops and that sort of stuff is more Friday than Monday for me, because that's sort of playing and creating. Whereas this is a little bit more, Mondays are a little bit more admin heavy, or as I said before, things that I need a little bit of extra accountability to get done.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. And I love that you broke that down a little bit more as well, because that was going to be my next question is how do you go from being in your admin day and you're doing the things you don't want to do to being creative, but you just mainly put that creative onto the Friday. So yeah, I literally love that. So if you obviously you are someone who is putting out these monthly lives and webinars and that sort of stuff, how much marketing materials are you making for that? Because obviously every morning you're getting on and you're doing your morning hi world, this is me type situation, but what are you doing in terms of during your week? How much marketing are you doing on social media as someone who is earning 6 figures and has 3 full days of clients?
Yeah. So I'm pretty consistent with batched content that just shows up on my Facebook page and my Instagram. And that is pre-written. When the inspiration lands, I capture it and I throw it into my project management tool. So my VA takes care of all of that. So all of the extra stuff on top is done with an SOP. It absolutely has to have a standard operating procedure, because if I had to rely on my own brain remembering to do the marketing, it just wouldn't happen. So there's a process there for that. But then, yes, it absolutely comes up in my Insight Timer lives, my Instagram lives, I should say, my stories. And I've got reminders every Wednesday. I always promote my hot seats. Like I set myself up for success with systems, so I don't have to carry things around in my head and remember. My husband cannot stand the amount of time that there's one just going now, is your newsletter written? Like my phone buzzes all the time with things that I want to do and when I want to do them. So my newsletter gets written on a Wednesday. Today's Wednesday. For me, it's perhaps a different day of the week when people are listening to this. So I can have it ready and sent on a Friday. So that process, everything is all process driven, so that I have the freedom, and that's mental freedom, but also freedom in my space, so that I'm not filling every waking moment with content creation, because that's a real thing.
Yeah, I love this. I love this. I definitely agree with systems and processes, and I want to dive a little bit more into that. And I also do want to talk about the VA as well. So you're saying obviously that a lot of your day is like, you do have like SOPs for everything. When you first started, just for people who are getting out there, how strict was that? Did you have like little check sheets that were like, okay, on this day I do this, on this day I do this? And then obviously you get used to the pattern and but how strict did you start just to keep yourself moving? And then where did that evolve to?
I found the best way for me to get started, and this is for my personality type and what works for me, is using Facebook groups that have theme days with hashtags. That worked for me, because anyone who is in a group that is being run by someone who is savvy in business and social media marketing will be able to look at the theme days and see that the theme days are very strategically set up for success. So if you can take those theme days and kind of replicate that in some way, shape, or form in a system that works for you, then that's a really good little kind of method. So if I'm committed, so I have 2 Facebook groups that I currently show up in. Back in the day, it was maybe 8 to 10. That was in my early days, because I was trying to get my name out there. Now my name is out there, but I don't want to be forgotten either. I'm a celebrity archetype, so don't forget about me. But also the routine of, these are the theme days for the different groups that I want to show up in to connect with potential clients, to make those networking connections and all of that sort of stuff. That's how I started, quite literally. So picking my groups and sort of making that a non-negotiable marketing activity for me, which meant that I was showing up daily inevitably, because the rotation of the different theme days always changed every day. So I just picked the groups that I wanted to show up in, and I used that as sort of like a launch pad to set me up for success. So it wasn't super structured and super rigid way back in the beginning, but knowing what works for me and finding something that kind of helps me do that consistently is where the sweet spot was for me back then. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. So for someone who is kind of like wanting to maybe create something that gives them a bit more freedom as well, it doesn't sound like you're super heavy on posting on 30 different channels, 50 different posts a day. You literally, we've got your morning live, you've got a piece of content probably every however often that's already structured and pre-scheduled, and then you just show up in some Facebook groups. Like that's not I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, I'm on everything, TikTok, so I'm loving this is amazing.
Yeah, well, my background is actually, before I moved into the intuitive business coaching and the mentoring work that I do now, I actually, because I came full circle. The short version of it was that I have all of these skills, and I sort of alluded to a few of those things earlier, like writing copy and whatnot for people. And there's another alarm going off to remind me. And so I went and got some business coaching right at the beginning, and the advice was to niche down and to pick one thing and specialize in it. So I did, and I became the Facebook content queen. And I've even got a queen tattoo, which was coincidental, not as a result. And then I've sort of gone and done that. I went and found my intuition, did some intuition training, become that a totally different spiritual person. And then I sort of came back full circle back into, oh, all of these things that I offered, I can now offer, because when I got known for one thing, I kind of carved my space in the online space. And once you become known for one thing, essentially you can do anything because you have the audience, the traction, and the momentum. So I don't recommend that you try and do a million things at once anyway, but that then set me up for success. So my background back then was Facebook marketing, was actually working Facebook to your advantage without the use of ads. So it was all organic strategies back in the day. Things have changed a lot now, and things are a little bit different, a little bit harder, but that's my background. So that kind of, I think that probably is an important piece of the puzzle to share, because I only started using Instagram during the pandemic. I was not an Instagram user. So I was a one platform gal, and it worked beautifully for me. So sometimes less is more.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And so even now it sounds like it's just Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, no other platforms. I am on LinkedIn, but that's because one of my old jobs back before I went into full-time self-employment was in recruitment, but I don't log into it. I don't touch it. It's just not the platform for me. Yeah, I do sell B2B, but it's just not my platform. You won't find me on anything else. I'm definitely not on TikTok. I definitely haven't jumped on anything else. I even didn't get onto Threads when that came out on Instagram, because I am very much a huge advocate for, like, do one thing and do it really well, because it's proven to be successful time and time again for me. So I tend to be the person who practices what they preach and be as congruent as possible, so that I'm not saying one thing to my clients and doing another.
Yeah, I love that. I love that as well. I do also want to talk about the VA, but I love that as well, in just that embodiment of, this is what I say, so this is what I actually do. You know, like practicing what you preach, I think is such an important integrity thing, and also alignment and energetic thing as well. Like being able to be like, you know, you can't be telling your clients just nail that one platform when you're on 55. You know?
Yeah, it would.
So,
I'd have some serious misalignment stuff going on if I did that.
yes. Yeah.
Sabotage everything.
Yeah, and I think as well it comes down to what you're building and what you want as well. Like if you're someone who wants to be on 50 platforms and you have the time for that, then go right ahead. But if that's not in your alignment, it's nice to hear that you don't have to do it. Like you're still making six figures, doing what you want to do with a schedule that you want to have, having weekends and evenings off, and you're on two platforms.
Yeah, and I'm at yoga until 9:45 on a Thursday morning, and I don't start seeing clients until at least an hour after that, so I can sit in the sun at the beach. So that's one of my client facing days, and I think that's important to mention as well. So yeah. Do you want to talk VAs? What can I share with you?
Look, I just firstly loved hearing that you start late on Thursdays. I think that's great. I've noticed with myself that there comes a point either on Wednesday or Thursday where I have to like get out of the house. So I'm like, I love that you have that scheduled in as well. I used to schedule it in. It never worried me it would change whether it was Wednesday or Thursday, but I'm the same thing, just to break up the week. So I love that you do that, and thank you for mentioning that. Now, obviously, we have said that you're only on two platforms. What does your VA do for you, and how does that take the pressure off?
So I have, full disclosure, I have two Filipino-based VAs, so they're offshore VAs, and then I have a VA OBM, and she has a team of people. So there is a lot that gets done for me. That wasn't the case always, because I didn't have the cash flow to sustain that, obviously. But I have almost always had an offshore VA for as long as I can remember. And I used to actually as part of my social media, Facebook organic strategy stuff, teach people how to bring a VA on so that they didn't have to literally sit there and do the scheduling part. Like, write your copy, let it have your heart and soul and all of your energy and your vibration in it. But you don't have to do the scheduling part. Like, let somebody else take care of that for a very nominal fee. Anyone who's in the Western world, we have a very, privileged economic situation for the most part. I'm very much generalizing there. But anybody who is privileged is usually doing okay compared to what financially someone in the Philippines would be paid per hour. So I always give my VAs bonuses and all of that sort of stuff so that it feels really aligned and abundant. But having said all that, I've always had an offshore VA almost for as long as I can remember. So those are the ones, those two team members do the scheduling of the content. They also design my images. I've got a very consistent brand. Like, if you have a look on my social media, you'll see my pink color and you'll know it. It's here. It's that, basically that fan color at the back there. Even though I'm in all black today, that brand aesthetic, I don't have to design my own images. For a while, I thought I did, and then I managed to let go of that control mechanism, if you will. And they design all my images, but I still to this day write all of my content because of my content background and because it's actually quite a smooth and effortless thing for me to do. It's not easy for everybody. So if you need support with content, get it. But they do all my content scheduling. When I create a new webinar, they build the sign up page, they set everything up, they use the copy that I provide them on the page, they create the welcome email. Then when I deliver it and get the recording over to them, they upload the recording, they send the recording email out. I still write all of the emails, but they take care of everything else. So if it has to have my voice, I write it, but I don't tend to do much else with it. And that, again, wasn't always the case. I used to do that bit myself, but it's grown and evolved over the years. So that's some of the things that my VAs do to help with the content side of things and distribution.
Yeah, I literally love that. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that so that everyone can kind of have a bit of an idea of what they can outsource, like having someone who can do, as you said, like your web stuff or create your images or schedule your posts. Like the amount of time it saves you from doing it yourself is phenomenal. So I love that you've touched on that as well. So thank you. Now, if someone did want to get started in creating a six-figure business, what do you think 3 top tips for them would be?
I've already mentioned it, but I think it's worth mentioning again. One thing, because if you're trying 3 different things at once and you tweak something, how do you know that it works when there's multiple variables? It's really hard to test and measure things when you're putting out a bajillion different things online. So the best advice that I can ever give anybody who is multi-passionate is, I love you're multi-passionate, but pick one thing just for now and do it so well that people are, as I said before, you're magnetizing people, and then pursue the other things. Because Elizabeth Gilbert, the author of Eat, Pray, Love, says in her book, Big Magic, don't put the pressure on your creative pursuits to be the thing that puts the roof over the head. It's okay to have other things. And so that leads me to my second thing is it's okay to be supported in other ways as you get started and as you build. So whatever that looks like, some people have full-time jobs and start their businesses on the side. Some people have partners who have, really comfortable revenue, income, whatever that might be, that can financially support them. Some people take out loans. I tend to not recommend that, but there's no shame in having support so that your base financial and safety needs are taken care of, because it can be really hard to learn the ropes. It's a very steep thing to get started. So there's absolutely no shame in having that support as you build and as you grow. So that's my second thing. And you said 3, right?
Yes, please. If you've got
yeah. The last thing is, and my first ever business coach, Tash, taught me this, and she said, teach your business what to expect from you. And so this is the whole like lifestyle, entrepreneurial freedom, that kind of conversation. And instead of going into your business with, I have to work nights because that's all that people will do, and like just basically people pleasing all over the internet, instead of setting that up based on scarcity mindset, create it how you want it to be, and eventually everything will come into place. It requires consistency and grit, but don't bend backwards for things that you really don't want to do, because it's really hard to then undo that. And I've never served of an evening until like the moment I had a full-time self-employment situation. I did nights when that was the only option I had because I was, full-time employed, but I've never offered nights. I never offer weekends. And I think I'm doing okay, right?
Yeah.
And yes, I miss out on a few people, but that fear of missing out on people when you're starting out is gigantic. And it feels really scary because that's potential income that you could be getting. And so we tend to see people bending over backwards, women especially, to accommodate whatever somebody needs, but actually standing true to what you really want and doing the best that you can, because they're the best hours that you work, is actually going to pay off in the long run, because then you're not chopping and changing and you feel really grounded. And honestly, base chakra wise, the number of women who need a little bit of extra and grounding and foundations in their base chakra that I see, it's so common. So build a foundation from the get-go and your business will eventually adjust and catch up to that, and it's okay.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it speaks to knowing the vision for what you want and embodying that vision. So I literally love that. What
Mhm.
about resources? Do you have any resources you can recommend? They can be your own, they can be other people's, they can be podcasts. I love that.
Definitely my book. And the reason why I recommend my book is, so as I mentioned, the concept of entrepreneurial freedom is like at the back here, it says, my guess is that you started a business to give yourself more freedom. You wanted a certain kind of lifestyle. You didn't want to have to report to a boss or a manager. You wanted flexibility, choose your own hours, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this book deals with the practical and the energetic aspects of creating that entrepreneurial freedom that we all desire. Anyone who's listening to this is going to understand exactly what I'm saying there. So it starts with an activity that's like, what does entrepreneurial freedom mean to you? You unpack that, you explore that. I share mine, I put my examples in there. And then I go through the 6 prisons, which are basically just subconscious programs, beliefs, fears, and stories that get in the way of creating that. So there's it's very practical. So it's only a very thin book because there's actually quite a lot of practical aspects in there. So there's journaling prompts, there's audios that will take you to Insight Timer so that you can listen to the audio that goes with the bit. And I'll read out the 6 chapters because I think these are really important. Chapter number 1 is overwhelm. So common. Number one. Number 2 is low self-esteem. That comes up a lot. Number 3 is like selling all the things and doing all the things all at once. Number 4 is trust, and that's a trust in self more so than anything, but also trusting in your intuition. Number 5 is the comfort zone. And number 6 is actually fierce independence. And each chapter has a story from a prisoner, and my story is the story in chapter 6. Like it's literally me telling my story, and this is what happened, and wow. And it is so practical that if you go through this and actively do all of the exercises and the activities, you will unlock that entrepreneurial freedom that you identify at the start of the book, because the work that is required of you to complete this book is not insignificant, but that's the grit that's required, that I believe for anyone who wants to get to that 6-figure, you can't just hope and wish, because the work is required. So that's the resource that I would recommend, but there's lots of other books. But yeah, get onto Insight Timer and have a look, listen to my business. I've got a whole bunch of meditations for business owners, for small business owners on Insight Timer. So I would highly recommend that as a resource bank as well, because they're free, they're readily available, and you can access them 24/7.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yes, Insight Timer, I get onto that as well. Do you want to give everyone just a little idea about what Insight Timer is?
Yes. So it's a hugely popular meditation app. And there are all sorts of people on there, from Gwyneth Paltrow to Russell Brand down to humble celebrities like me. And anyone who wants to offer meditations to the world can create a beautiful track on pretty much anything that they like and make that available. So I'm a teacher on there. I've got easily 30 something meditations on there. And my most popular ones are my client attraction meditations, because who doesn't love that? So yeah, it's an easy app to use. It's very user friendly. It's free. There is a premium version, but you don't need that. And Insight Timer, Insight as in INSIGHT, and then timer as in like a timer, like a clock, is what it's called.
Beautiful. I love that. And we all have that from the power of our phones. So that's amazing. Now,
Yes,
where can people
absolutely.
find you if they want to connect with you? We've got the Facebook, Instagram, Insight Timer. Can you just run
Yep.
us through where they can find you, please?
Yes, absolutely. So you'll find me on my Facebook business page, because I won't do any business on my personal profile, because that's not what it's for me. And that's just Chenae Carey Coaching. And if you need to spell my name, get in touch with Simone, have a look at the episode, because that's a little bit of a tricky thing. Same thing on Instagram as well. I'm at Chenae Carey, and same thing on Insight Timer. I got married, but I didn't take my husband's name because all my branding is in Chenae Carey, and it's kind of good because it's alliteration. The CC, and it's one of those things that I just decided was going to be easier. So yeah, you'll find me in all the places. You'll find me at chenaecarey.com. Like, type my name in, you'll find me everywhere. Yeah.
Amazing. I love that. And I will link to all of your details in the notes below on the YouTube channel. You guys will be able to find it, but you can reach out to me if you need to. But yeah, it'll all be below. So thank you so much, Chenae, for being here. This has been such an awesome conversation. I just want to dive more into everything.
I've loved it too. Thank you so much. I feel like we've started about half a dozen other conversations that, you're right, we could probably continue to flesh out. But, for the sake of timing and honoring that, I will definitely wrap it up. But thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Yes, thank you. And we'll see you next time.